Hello, and welcome to day 3 of America's Seed Fund Week. I'm Jennifer Shih, Director of Ecosystem Development in the Office of Investment and Innovation at the U.S. Small Business Administration. We started the week with an overview of America's Seed Fund, the Small Business Innovation Research and Small Business Technology Transfer Programs, and how to get started. If you weren't able to make it, you can watch the replay on SBA's YouTube channel. But I'll give you some key pieces of terminology today. So America's Seed Fund comes in stages. Phase 1 is for proof of concept work. Phase 2 furthers that research and development. And Phase 3, the beyond Phase 2, is commercialization, getting to the marketplace. And so we're going to be talking a lot about that today. I'm excited that we have Stephanie Fertig from the NIH, Manny Oliver from the Department of Energy, and Mina Khalil from the Department of Defense, U.S. Special Operations Command, here to talk all about it. So one of the key things that we advise entrepreneurs all the time is to begin with the end in mind, that Phase 3. What is the product or service you're making? Who's going to be using it? Who's going to pay for it? And what are the ways you can work through that technology development pathway? How do you bring that end state knowledge in and match up the structure of funding that you can get, especially from America's Seed Fund, with how you're going to get to that customer? So today's panel, we're going to help you clarify opportunities and strategies to get from that Phase 1 to the Phase 2 and beyond. And now I'll ask my esteemed colleagues here to introduce themselves, the agency they're representing, and to tell us a little bit about how your agency thinks of success for an awardee. You know, what is that Phase 3, whether it's in the private marketplace or is it the government as the customer? And so let's start with you, Stephanie.
Thanks, Jennifer. Well, good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, depending upon your time zone. My name is Stephanie Fertig. I'm the HHS Small Business Program Lead within the Small Business Education and Entrepreneurial Development Office, or SEED office, within the National Institutes of Health. At the National Institutes of Health, our mission is turning discovery into health. And we really utilize our small business programs to get those great innovations that are out there throughout the country and bring them into the hands of the patients, clinicians, caregivers, and researchers that need them. So what does that mean? Well, we are generally not the final purchasers of the technology and the products that you're developing. We're here to help de-risk, support that research and development, de-risk it, and help you transition it to the marketplace, or for many of our technologies, getting it in, getting you to the point where you can attract a partner or a third-party investor. And so, again, I think that's one of the major differences between us and some of the other agencies that you may have heard from yesterday during those great, introduction, the reverse pitches that you might have heard. So, and with that, I'm going to switch it over. I'm not sure who's next.
We'll head over to Manny.
Yeah.
How does the Department of Energy think about Phase 3 success?
Hi. Thanks, Jennifer. Yeah, my name is Manny Oliver. I'm Director of the Sbir and STTR programs at the Department of Energy. I first want to mention that, thinking about success in our agency is that we are a fairly large and diverse agency. And so we have some different mission areas. The one that we're most known for, I think, is clean energy. For example, our Office of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy, things like solar and wind technologies and so on. So some parts of our agency do address, large commercial markets. And so we do expect, success to occur in the private sector. You will leverage your Sbir and STTR awards to move you to the point, again, where you can attract private investment and go after some of those large markets. We have other parts of the department, again, perhaps some not as well known, for example, our Office of Science, our Office of Nuclear Nonproliferation, where the focus will be in technologies, for example, to develop advanced scientific instrumentation. Those will be very different markets, and some of them are probably less likely to attract venture and other kinds of large-scale funding for you to move on to Phase 3. And so these will be more narrowly focused markets, but still important to our mission to advance scientific discovery or to prevent, nuclear non-proliferation. So in those areas, the commercialization can look a little bit different. For example, some of our national laboratories may be interested in the instrumentation you develop. And in fact, you may actually want to partner with some of those labs. A lot of our applicants do take advantage of those resources at our national labs. And again, some of them potentially might be customers for the technology. So yeah, there's no one simple answer, but in general, we, like NIH, are going to, not provide direct phase 3 funding from DOE headquarters. We may see some phase 3 funding from our national labs, but so in that sense, we are generally also not the primary customer, and for that reason, we are using grants as the primary vehicle for funding our Sbir and STTR awards.
Thanks, Manny. I think we're going to dig into a lot of what you said there throughout this conversation. Mina, please tell us a little bit about yourself and the Department of Defense and Socom.
All right, so my name is Mina Khalil. I am the US Socom SBIR STTR Program Manager. So Department of Defense has a big chunk, a big piece of the SBIR STTR funds. Our major services has a big piece of it. From the Socom perspective, we are not as much, very little, but we are transition focused. We've been one of the leaders in phase 3 transition. Our topics come directly from our program offices, and it focuses on transition. So phase 3 is your ability to cross the manufacturing and production requirements to meet the market or government requirements. So it's being on the program of record. It's utilized. It's being utilized by the warfighters, being fielded. So before as we go through this, and I know we're gonna get all the questions and answers to answer, but I want to ask you one question. How can you produce your innovative developments?
I love it. You turn the tables there, and
yeah.
So okay, so now we've talked about the end, like what does success look like for your agencies, and so now let's go back to the beginning. Okay, if you are new, let's say, and you just won a phase 1, what should you be thinking about next? How can a company prepare from the start to be successful in that? And maybe we can start with Mina if you'd like to do that.
Sure,
what would you suggest? Yeah.
So connect and communicate with your technical POC. These guys have a requirements that they're focused on, some kind of a technology insertion roadmap or a technology roadmap that they're working towards. And the more you connect, the more you communicate with them, you'll find out more of what the end goal it's looking to be. What is that final report is going to look like? And as you continue to do your research, you can refine it more to focus on this technology that we're focused on wanting to give to our warfighters. So again, it's really just the matter of connecting, communicating, and then that will results in focusing on the requirements. It results in progressing to the phase 2, and it even be the paved pathway to the phase 3.
And so you mentioned this technical point of contact, and I want to, and a technology roadmap, and I'm going to ask, Manny and Stephanie actually to address that. So there's, that end customer you said in the Department of Defense, who that's your technical point of contact when you're working with them after you're a phase 1 awardee.
Yes, so the Department of Defense is looking at this technology, and as it becomes a reality, you get that phase 1. You're working directly for someone or with someone from the program office, someone from the engineering firm, someone from the end users, representing the end users, and these are your technical point of contact. Generally, they are going to be the ones. They're going to be the contract officer representative, guiding you, meeting with you. From Socom perspective, they are a member of the program office. So you already have a connection, a direct connection to the program of record. And they're the ones that are looking at the requirements, looking at what you're providing and saying, hey, this can solve this problem, well, not problem, but can solve this requirement. So this is our technical POC. This is someone this is your in to the Department of Defense, and this is someone you need to have a good relationship with.
Oh, well, and so I'm going to turn over to Stephanie. Is that, how would you say that the NIH or other agencies within Health and Human Services operate? Is that, how would you contrast that, let's say?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some differences. I mean, there is a point of contact. Similar to the Department of Defense, we do have a program officer, but that's where some of the similarities end, right? So HHS generally supports our small businesses as grants and not contracts. A very small percentage of the awards that we make come in through contracts. So we tend to do grants and aid. So we have a program officer that's assigned to your grant, and that person is your point of contact. And is an individual that you can go to and ask questions of, see what resources are available. Another major difference between us and the Department of Defense is we tend not to be as topic driven. So Department of Defense tends to have very specific topics. They've written those topics. They want you to come in under those topics. We tend to be very investigator initiated. What does that mean? That means you're coming to us and saying, the patients, clinicians, caregivers, that community, here is the problem. And here's how our innovation and technology is going to solve that problem. As part of your phase one, you're going to have provided go, no go milestones. You're going to have where you want to get at the end of the phase one. And then again, a little bit different maybe from some of the other agencies. If you're coming in as a standard phase one, when you come in then for the standard phase, for a standard phase two, you're going to have to go through our peer review process again, show the progress as part of your phase one, show how you met the milestones that you laid out in that phase one. So the whole process is a little bit different because again, and this is back to that keeping that end in mind, which I thought was a great way to start, because we're not the final purchasers. Again, we're here just to help de-risk it to get it to the marketplace or to a partner or investor. And so those are some of the major differences. Now, we have a number of resources, and we'll get to that, I'm sure, in a minute, but we have a number of resources that we do provide companies to help them on that journey and to help them with that handoff. And as I said, I'll put a pin in that, so don't go anywhere. But there are some differences just because the ends are so different.
And, one, I want to encourage people to add the audience to share their questions via the Q&A. And we'll be adding. And so actually we do have a few questions, and then I'm going to have Manny kind of talk a little bit also about DOE and how the way that Mina just described, technical milestones. It sounds like, one, Department of Defense does contracts. And so there are deliverables that are required or expected at the end of that phase one, right? And Stephanie talked a little bit about the phase one. And so one of the questions that's really coming in right now, and maybe Manny, you can talk about this in the context of DOE, is what's the route or timeline to go from, phase one, first grant, all the way through commercialization? And kind of giving a little bit of flavor, somebody was saying like their impression is that for SBIR, it can take 3 to 6 years to cycle kind of from phase one to phase three. And, is there something that can help you go faster? So Manny, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so, first I would have meant to say that DOE is actually a little bit of a hybrid between what Stephanie said and what Mina said. So we are a granting agency, we're not the customer. So when we have a technical point of contact, like Stephanie does for your award, unlike DoD, they're not going to lead you to the customer. They are really there as a technical point of contact for your grant, but they're not, as the agency is not the customer, that's not, the route. So we have programs, and I guess we'll get into that later, as Stephanie mentioned, to help you with that. So in terms of starting your phase one grant, what you should do, again, do a good job on the research that you planned, but also take advantage of resources of the agency to address the commercialization side. That's something that's relatively new to your firm. To get your question on the cycle time, how do you go from phase one commercialization? A lot of that is going to depend on the technology you're developing. We've had software firms that have achieved sales actually during phase two. And so again, that technology lends itself to rapid commercialization. We've had people developing new materials or some advanced instruments where in fact it takes many, many years. It could take as many as 10 years for some of the technologies we develop to get to the customer. And it may actually require multiple awards. So, I don't know if we want to get into that cycle yet, but DOE does have a deep tech focus in some of our technology areas. And so we do have a phase one, phase two, a second phase two, and even a third phase two award to address some of those challenges. We also, in many cases, technology has to be developed. It can't all be done in parallel. So if you're going to make some advanced, radiation detector, you may have to work on developing new single crystal materials. You may have to make an image detector out of that. And you may need to package and put it in a cooling, in some, advanced cooling device. So that's a handheld device you can carry around. All of that takes, different generations of technology to bring that to the market. So the answer to that question is not simple. It really depends strongly on your technology. And I'm sure for the life science technology, there's a different range of issues involved that Stephanie can address. So let me stop there.
Yeah, well, I think Manny just threw it over to you, Stephanie, about kind of speed of getting through the process. And maybe something else that could be a little bit addressed by anyone here, but how does the size of each award sort of relate back to that getting through the whole journey and process, right? What size awards do you give? And Manny brought up, and we'll have to get back to this, but more phase two awards after that first phase two.
Right. And so, wow, there's several questions there, but I will try, I'll try to remember all of them. So the first question is one of speed. And as was noted, the NIH does have a peer review process, and I'm going to be talking a little bit more about that in my reverse pitch. The good news is that regardless, and I'm not going to go into the review in great detail, but we have a number of different ways that that phase two can come to us, right? So some of our applicants do come in through what we might call a more standard route. You get a phase one, and then you have to go through the peer review process again. You go through the whole peer review process, just like you did for the phase one, and then you're awarded the phase two. But we also have the option of doing what we call a fast track. So for some of our applications, they come in and they're submitting both the phase one and the phase two in one proposal. And so there's an administrative review between the phase one and phase two, but that really reduces the time between the phase one and then the phase two. And then we also do a direct to phase two, but I'll put a pin in that. We also do what we call a phase 2B or a second phase two. And we also have a commercialization readiness pilot program, or the CRP. Now, the really important thing to note here is that across HHS, we have, NIH, we also have CDC, FDA, and ACL. So we have a number of different operating divisions. And within NIH, we have 24 different institutes and centers. So when I say we have these different options, phase 2B, CRP, not all institutes, centers, not all components within HHS participate in those other options. However, all of us, and this is why it's so important. And if you take nothing from the panel today, that program officer is really, really critical, because they can talk with you about what resources are available, what's the next best step. And really that at NIH and more broadly across HHS, that point of contact is really important in helping guide you about what your options are.
Thanks. I'm going to turn over to Mina, actually, and I know it looks like you have something you wanted to add anyway. So also with that, Stephanie mentioned a few different things that I was curious about, and also about speed, kind of like if we go back to speed and size of awards. So Mina, for Socom or DoD more broadly, one, do you do direct to phase twos? No, that's a yes or no. Yes. Okay, you do direct to phase twos. You do participate. The other thing is just in general, I think specifically Socom has some unique features related to kind of advancing the commercialization side of things and the fact in just where you start and how you collaborate with other agencies as well in picking up some products that might have already been developed a little bit further along the line. So maybe you can speak to that.
Yeah, so I was looking at the question. It's a good question. 3 to 6 years, can we cut it down to 10 times less? I don't know about that, but I can meet you at 25% of 6 years. So Socom a few years ago, we've asked for a legislation and a specific authority. Hey, why can't we award SBIRs through our partner intermediaries, do a business-to-business contract? You know, following defense contracting, you know, aside from grants, it might not be the easiest pathway, and it may deter some of you. It may be harder. It may take a little bit longer. And we see sometimes between phase one and phase two, it takes, you know, as it can take about 3 to 4 months. Maybe it can take over, you know, a year and a half. But that needs to be cut down. So Socom asked for this this specific authority that Congress gave us, which in FY 2020, and then it was very successful that it was reauthorized or it was extended in FY 2022, section NDAA section 852, and this authority gave Socom and Socom only in all of the U.S. government to the ability to award through our partner intermediary. It's a non-for-profit called SoftWorks. And the SoftWorks does a business-to-business contract. The contracting period takes about a day to 7 days rather than the few months. So all in all, we actually do get a proposal to award in about 30 days or less. And we've demonstrated that very well. Now, from phase one to phase two, we were able to even cut that down to 30 days or less. So, you know, some of the percentages and numbers that we received was getting a phase one to an end to a prototype in 50% less time. For Socom, that's going from 36 months down to about, we've done it in about 12 to 18 months at times. And again, it really depends on how much development this effort needs or this technology needs. And it also depends on what, you know, how fast we need this kind of technology, because our warfighters need it.
I want to ask, actually, can I ask about what the process and the timing between, like, what does it look like after you have a phase one? How do you go to phase two? Stephanie mentioned for NIH, you have to submit again for a phase two and go through the peer review process. Manny, for DOE, is that also true? You have to submit to.
Yes, we have, you know, a program where if you get a phase one, say this year, this fiscal year, next year, you would apply for the phase two, and there would be a separate solicitation, just like the phase one. The process is very similar. You know, the application process and everything is very similar to phase one.
But for DoD?
So for DoD, it really depends. It depends on a department. I mean, we have 13 components within DoD that participate. So for example, DARPA will say, hey, propose, you know, you don't need any further documentation, propose right away within a period. The Navy would say kind of doing the same thing. SOCOM would say, hey, we're going to give you another statement of objectives, and you propose, because we're now focused on honing on this specific technology that you can prototype from a phase one to a phase two. And again, we're trying to kind of change things a little bit to make it more fluent and make it better for the small businesses, so we can, but you know, make things a little bit shorter between a phase one and phase two. But it really, you know, every DoD component have innovatively used the Sbir program in many ways to try to get to that phase one, to the phase two. But all in all, they do have to propose and bring forth here's what we're planning to do, and I think that's generally speaking for Department of Defense.
And actually, so I think this gets to, there's a question, you know, from the audience about success rates. So, okay, so we're going to do speed round here. Okay, what's the success rate for your phase one, just core basic phase one, Mina?
All right, we do about, I would say 67 to 50% proceed to phase 2 from a phase 1 on average.
Oh, but success rates in phase 1. So like approximately how many people win, what percentage of people win phase 1 awards?
I don't have that number handy, but we do about 3 to 4 awards per topic. So that really depends on how many. If we get about 30 or 40 proposals, we do so about 10%.
Okay. Manny?
Not
Phase 1,
Uh,
and then I like Mina's where he was going, phase 1 to phase 2.
Yeah, so we're it varies from year to year, but depending on funding level, so we're about 20% or about 1 in 5 chance of winning phase 1, and then the transition to phase 2 it's in the order of 40 to 50%.
Stephanie?
Can I say it depends? No, it does depend a little bit on the individual institute and center. So I will tell you there is some variability there, and there's some variability based on SBIR to STTR in general. So that's all my little like my fine print. In general, I'd say somewhere in the mid-teens to mid-20s, depending upon budget and the number of applications that we receive for the phase 1, and then for the phase 2, mid-30s to mid-40s. 40%. Again, it's very variable. And oftentimes when we're talking about, say, a fast track, those tend to transition on average. So that's, those tend to, because they've already been through the peer review process, those tend to get awarded, those phase 2s, versus a phase 2 that comes in through the full peer review process. So,
well, and so that's kind of the other question, some people, so Mina, you said you do direct to phase 2s, Stephanie, direct to phase 2s or fast tracks. What do the success rates look like for companies that are applying direct to phase 2? Is it similar to, the 30 to 50 to 60% success rates like phase 2?
I love that question because it allows me to do a little myth busting. So there's a lot of myths around there about the success rates and what's the success rate and what's the best way to come in. And so I'm going to start by saying the best way to come in is what makes the most sense for your project and for your company. On average, what we found, and again, this is an average looking year after year across all parts of the NIH, the success rate for a phase 1, a fast track, and a direct to phase 2 are roughly equivalent. We don't compare direct to phase 2s with standard phase 2s because if you think about it, the reviewers have already seen it. So when I'm comparing if you're coming to us for the first time, phase 1, fast track, or direct to phase 2, your success rate's roughly the same. So it makes more sense to pick which one, instead of trying to figure out which one gives you the best success rate, pick the one that makes the most sense for your company.
Mina?
I want to stand behind Stephanie and say that's the answer right there. But in addition to that, I mean, the success rate for direct to phase 2s on a DoD level, that is really dependent from component to another. So I would say Air Force has a different success rate than the Navy, than the Army, than Socom. But from the Socom perspective, it really depends from topic to another, because some topics we're looking to award multiple. We're trying to put some more in the market and say, hey, here's some for the competitive edge. And let's get those companies to innovate because they can help out other, partner nations, for example. At the same time, some of them we're looking for one award. But the main key for direct to phase 2s, and that hits on something that is being asked in the questions here, is your feasibility study must be included. You have to include your feasibility study as part of the proposal. It is non-responsive proposal package if it does not have that one. And that one document is what tells us how much research was done and the feasibility of you being able to produce that prototype. So our numbers, I would say it's still about 10 to 20%, give or take, from whatever proposals we receive. We don't receive as many proposals for Socom, for example, but and that what keeps the numbers for the 1, 2, 3 awards. It really depends on who we see that fits in within meeting our requirements.
So since we're talking about success rates, the key thing for everybody listening, right, is yes, there are different pathways to get into America's Seed Fund, to the SBIR and STTR programs that you could start. And it should be dependent on what makes sense for what projects you have. Now, since we're talking about these kind of, let's say, first-time applicants, I know that there are a number of programs to help those who are new. And I think we have a lot of people who are new and asking a lot of questions. So Manny, can you talk a little bit? I know DOE's topics are out. And so that probably also means there's that applicant assistance program is also open currently. And so Manny, could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, as soon as we issue our topics, we do open up our Phase 0 application assistance program. And that's really to help people who are, and to be eligible, you have to be a first-time applicant to the DOE, SBR, and STTR program. So that's the eligibility requirement. And, we know it's a big task, reading through our solicitations, understanding all the, requirements that are for first-time applicant to the government, putting together a federal budget, understanding the direct costs and all of that. So we do have a contractor who provides assistance to get you through the process. It's not all about filling out forms, and we're not going to write your proposal for you. It's really about submitting a high quality proposal. We want you to get through the requirements section, but they will assist you as well with critically reviewing your proposal to identify gaps for people who are first time applying and maybe are not as savvy as as applying for federal funding. So yeah, that opens up right away. That's no cost to first-time applicants. DOE is paying the contractor to provide you with those services, and they will be able to. There's sort of a menu of things you can select from, depending on what your your specific needs are. And we know we're not the only one doing that. Other agencies such as NIH offer similar programs as well to those who are new to the applying for federal funding.
Oh, I'll take that segue. I'll absolutely take that. Yes, we do have an applicant assistance program similar to the DOE. We have a program, and again, not all institutes and centers participate, and I asked to have a link put in the chat, but that program is, again, there's access to a contractor who helps you with that first submission. In addition to that program, we also, the National Institute on Minority Health and Health Disparities has a health disparities pre-application program as well that was just launched as a pilot. So there's a number of different programs, and that's also in that link. In addition, we have as part of our website, a whole section on how to prepare an application, sample applications. So, and including the phase 2. So as we're talking about this, how do you transition if you're a phase 1 and you've never done a phase 2 before? How do I transition? The great news is we have sample applications of what a phase 2 looks like. What does that commercialization plan look like? To help guide you on, what that next step should be.
And I do have to call out also there are a number of kind of phase 0, if we think of everything before to help you get to phase 1 as a phase 0, there are a number of states and local organizations that provide support in helping apply to SBIR for those first-time applicants. Nina.
Yeah, so I mean, from the Socom perspective, we're small, but we're actually partnering up with our partner intermediary, Softworks, a non-for-profit to provide a session. We're doing a small business boot camp on the 24th and the 25th. You can find out more on Softworks. Oops, muted myself. On softworks.org. And if we'd be more than happy for you to sign up. You get more sessions on a lot more. We'll bring more from the Florida, the states. Assistance for small businesses from Softworks, from Socom, from Office of Small Business programs, etc. And these can be helpful if you are interested to learning more as first time. Department of Defense as a whole, they provide different programs from within. So try to visit www.defensesbirsttr.ml. mil. See what they have to offer within there, and you can also review and see our, the Department of Defense's proposals, or the BAAs that's out, not proposals, BAAs that are out right now. For example, Socom has 4 direct phase 2s, all focused on software development. Good opportunity for you to check it out and see, hey, I can actually participate in that.
So actually, I want to go back to some questions from the audience from earlier, actually. One is just, maybe this is a quick one. How do you figure out what the agencies are looking for, or how to even determine like what those topics are? Or so Mina, I think you had just flagged the solicitations, the broad agency announcements, topics. Like how do we know what those are? How do we know what's important to the agency? So like you were saying, the Department of Defense might be a customer. How do you know what the customer is looking for?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, from the topic inception itself, there are different ways. For example, I mean, the Air Force have this open topic process where they say, hey, go ahead and submit to us, and then they ask you to solicit and talk to other partner components, fourth estates, etc. That can find, so you can find where they will push you to get.
So doing some customer discovery initially with the federal government there, but those topics.
But the topics themselves, they do come from somewhere around the program office. Again, from Socom, they come from the program office. We are looking at something to field. We're looking for something to solve a problem or a requirement. So that's where we start the inception. And they come to, for example, they come to me first and they say, hey, this is what I have. How can we get a solution for this? And we write up a topic, we write up the information that we're looking for, and we put it out there. And that kind of is in line with most of the other DoD components, where they go ahead and they receive this information, say, this is this is what we're looking for, this is what we need solution on, or technology to provide, and they put it out there on www.dodsbirsttr.mil instead of sam.gov for you to look into, and even ask questions that will go to directly to the topic author.
And Manny, we just mentioned, DOE's topics are out there. How do we find out? Is that where we see like what's important to DOE? And how does that relate to an end customer?
Yeah, so, it's a very good point. So, we, as I mentioned before, we're somewhat between, say, Socom and NIH in that regard, in the sense we issue grants, but at the same time, our topics are much more focused. They're not investigator initiated. Because like, the Department of Defense, we do actually do research in terms of what are the critical technologies that are preventing, our mission advances in areas, anything from solar to energy storage or things like that. So we're not sort of blind to that. We actually are very active in the research in those fields, and we can see what those technology roadblocks are. And so our topics are focused on where those roadblocks are, so that so that DOE can sort of focus its resources on kind of the critical areas. Now, however, unlike DoD, we are not the customer. So that information is coming through DOE from a technology perspective, but not from a customer's perspective. So when you see our topics, we are saying, hey, these are the roadblocks we feel need to be addressed. However, it's still the responsibility of the small business to identify, which customer, what part of that problem are they going to take on, and who's going to be the customer for that technology. So I guess that's my sort of quick action. I also just want to add that I think for our agency, at least, I won't speak to other agencies, we put the technical program manager associated with the topic in the topics document. And so we put out the topics early, so you can not worry about how to apply first. You need to figure out whether there's a topic for you to apply. So our topics usually come out first, about a month before our solicitations, so you can focus on that question first. So you can reach out, send an email. Our program managers cannot evaluate your ideas. You're not going to pitch something to them and say it's a good or bad idea. All they can tell you is whether it fits within the topic they're looking for or not. So whether it's responsive. We'll have to wait to see your application before we start judging anything. So I do want to point that out. When you're asking questions of program managers, do not ask them to evaluate your idea. Just ask them, is this fit what the agency is looking for? And then also associated with that, I just want to mention, we have a letter of intent requirement. So before you submit your application, you will send us a letter of intent, and we will give you feedback as to whether it is responsive or not. So in case you can't get a hold of the program manager or anything else, that's a routine part of our process. They will let you know, if there are any issues with what you proposed, and it is not something that rejects you from being able to apply. Everybody who submits a letter of intent can submit an application. However, if you do get feedback that it appears non-responsive and you want to submit an application, you should definitely address that feedback. So.
Well, this actually kind of gets a little bit to, so both DoD and DOE have specific topics. And so one question is just, is it possible for companies to actually, suggest topics that might eventually come out?
I don't know if Mina wants to start. Or
Yeah,
I can jump in on that.
Industry give you
yeah.
input
So, and
on
again,
that? Yeah.
I would just say that our topics aren't developed in a vacuum. So those are actually developed in collaboration with the research community and industry. So we are getting that feedback. But if you feel like we're missing out on something, just find the topic manager that's closest to what you're doing and provide that input to DOE. I mean, independent of if you see some opportunities that we're not addressing, yeah, we are definitely open to getting input about some areas that we're not addressing. And people have suggested, topic areas in the past that have shown up in, future solicitations. You can't, unfortunately, write your topic when the solicitation is open, so it has to be developed before the solicitation goes out. But we definitely value your input. So.
There are many ways of doing this. Now, I mean, when the topic is written, it's written for full and open BAA. So let me try to tackle this from a Department of Defense perspective. I mean, there are some opportunities to do open topic type stuff where you can propose and see what's out there and who is actually looking for this technology. That's in a way that's within the BAA open period. Socom, for example, did an open topic STTR that we just closed. But how would you know about this? DoD has a mailing list that they send out all the topics, all the Q&A sessions and everything that they do. So you have this opportunity to see it, and it's all emailed opportunities. Absolutely recommended to sign up for it.
I'll just put a flag in for every agency has a mailing list here. So definitely go sign up if there's an agency that you might actually get funding from.
Yeah. From the other perspective is, you've already done a phase 1 or a phase 2, you are in. That's the beauty of SBIRs. You can use your SBIR to award follow-ons, phase 2s, phase 3s in any US government agency. In Socom, we use that very well. Over 50% of our phase 2s came from non-Socom SBIRs, including NIH, DOE, USDA. You never know.
Yeah, I will actually, I'm just going to flag that when I was at the Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute at NIH, Socom and NHLBI co-funded an SBIR award for.
And we do that all the time. We do it with with DoD components and outside as well, where we use we try to work together and collaborating. I think of the SBIR STTR community as a my second culture in addition to my Socom community, and that's a big thing. Leverage that very well. So that's one other way is submit. Hey, this is the technology I've been working on, and each DoD component has its own submit your idea process. For us, it's on socom.mil doing business, and put it out there, see who's interested in this technology. So that's another way of doing so.
Okay, so I know we're actually, this has been a really fascinating conversation, but we're starting to get to the end, and I haven't addressed this huge thing, which was technical and business assistance, TABA. So, okay, so one maybe quick round of what is TABA, but does your agency support TABA services? Like, can you just describe what that looks like for a phase 1 or phase 2 awardee? That might be just, I don't know, just a summary of what does TABA look like for, and we'll go to Stephanie first at the NIH, because I know there've also been some changes there.
Absolutely. And so we allow for both individual companies to ask as part of their application, ask for what we call technical and business assistance, or TABA funding. And so you can ask for technical and business assistance and ask for funds for you to go and find your own contractor, find your own consultant to provide that technical and business assistance. Alternatively, we have centralized technical and business assistance for both phase 1s and phase 2s. For the phase 1, we have a needs assessment program where you can, if you're a phase 1 awardee, you can request a needs assessment report from the from our contractor, and we have a contractor that provides that report and really looks at 4 major business areas, and that can be really used to help you determine what are my gaps and what are my next steps. What should I be asking for with regards to technical and business assistance funding in the phase 2. We also have a technical and business assistance consulting services for phase 2s, and that's for those phase 2s who they again may need additional support or help in order, technical and business assistance in order to get to commercialization. When we talk about technical and business assistance, and by the way, this is something, since Jennifer didn't cover this, this is really, again, you are allowed to either at the phase 1 level, ask for, get $6,500 per year of help, technical and business assistance help, either again at NIH. We allow it either through funding or through these services. But again, other parts of our agency only, don't have those centralized services. So it's really important to talk with us ahead of time. Since we're coming to the end, that should be a theme. Talk with us ahead of time. And then you can ask for up to $50,000 per project for the phase 2. So each agency has a little bit of a different ways that they provide that technical and business assistance support. And then I'll just slip in there that we even do resources beyond technical and business assistance. And so that's why it's really important to reach out and just talk with us about what options are available.
Manny, what does technical and business assistance look like from DOE?
For DOE, again, we have, just like Stephanie mentioned, both in phase 1 and phase 2, you can propose your own vendors. We do provide services and services from a DOE vendor for phase 1. And again, that's largely focused on, preparing a really good phase 2 commercialization plan. And then but we do not have a vendor providing phase 2 services anymore. We've decided to discontinue that. A few years ago, the phase 2 increased to 50,000. We've seen companies, want to use that for multiple vendors. We're using it for patent attorneys, market research, a whole range of activities. So a lot of our folks are coming in with, multiple vendors to provide services in their phase 2. And having seen that transition, a larger number want to use their own vendor in phase 2. So we have backed off on providing a DOE vendor services for just for phase 2. And as Stephanie mentioned, we have services beyond what is considered TABA. So we have an Energy I-Core program for phase 1. So that's a customer discovery training program developed originally by NSF. So our typical phase 1 awardee would, receive their award, do the R&D, but at the same time, in the first half of the phase 1, they would take the Energy I-Core training. In the second half, they would actually work with the TABA vendor to actually develop their commercialization plan. So that's a kind of a typical route for the phase 1. Again, just so that by the time you apply for phase 2, you do have a very, much more solid footing as to what your planning is going forward.
So Mina, before you answer, I want to flag number one, everybody should definitely stay on Hopin, because starting at 2 p.m., you get to see Stephanie Fertig again. And so she's going to hop off of our panel so that she can head over to do the reverse pitch, and you can dig in way deeper into all of those things. If you're doing something related to biomedical technology, you should go to that reverse pitch. And also the Ask Me Anything sessions. DOE, thanks, Stephanie. We'll see you later. DOE is also going to be doing a reverse pitch later this afternoon at 4 p.m. And the Department of Defense will be doing Ask Me Anything sessions from 2 to 4 as well. So if you had questions, you thought, you were really excited by what Mina was talking about, you should definitely go to those Ask Me Anything sessions and learn a little bit more. You can hear about some of the other services components that participate in the DoD. Ask Me Anything sessions are also going on for a number of other agencies. So in any case, I know that we're starting to wrap up here, and I did want to ask for you to talk a little bit. So one, Mina, to explain a little, those kind of commercialization related services or support programs like TABA, but I'd like to also hear your last words of advice, and then or success, like where can they go to look at some success stories and examples of that again. So Mina.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, TABA is one source. And again, it can be used for a plethora of things. If you have that opportunity, depending on the DoD component that offers it, use it, find a way to use it, and see how it can help you in commercialization. It can help you with, even with cybersecurity. If you want to strengthen your network and your infrastructure to make sure there's nobody out there poking in and trying to take your technology, that's a good way to use it as well. Now, final remarks from my end is really just kind of pay attention to what Department of Defense is putting out there. Go to the links that we talked about. Sign up, see what opportunities are out there. The Department of Defense is looking to help to across this so-called valley of death and bridging it very well. And we talk about it very times. There are programs such as the OTST. That's a good program. That's a good program to talk about or ask the questions.
OTSD.
OTST, Oscar Tango. I don't remember the acronym name, but it's Oscar Tango Sierra Tango. Even DoD have put in for an authority, and they had something called the AppFit, APFIT, where Ms. Shu, the Undersecretary of Defense for Research and Engineering, has put in and said, hey, I want to give $10 million to programs that are seeing transition, and they have done a tremendous amount of work and a phenomenal job to get companies to produce and to be able to grow in the U.S. market. So keep your eyes open, log in to go to the websites, look out for what's out there, see what each agency, DoD component is looking for, what each agency is looking for, and continue to collaborate and communicate with the technical POCs. And one last thing I want to say is pay attention to the instructions. A lot of times I see companies, I'm like, these guys are doing a great job, but for all fairness, they've missed these specific things like a feasibility study for a directive phase 2. Thank you for the time and the opportunity to be on this panel.
Yeah, thanks, Mina. And Manny, any final words of advice to people thinking about how to get through the full, beyond phase 2, and where can they find some success stories and examples?
Yeah, let me start with the phase 3 part, because we do post a number of phase 3 success stories on our webpage. And, those are 2 to 3 page stories, so that, they do try to explain, the thinking behind the people who were, developing the technology from day one, and, why they applied for SBIR, how important it was for them to be successful. So that's a good starting point, just to hear someone else's story about, how the SBIR programs help them. In terms of advice, especially if you're new coming in, I think the, drinking from a water hose, fire hose analogy is entirely appropriate. You're getting showered with a lot of information here, different programs, they have different requirements, different missions, and it, certainly is very overwhelming, looking at all that. So, you do have to spend a little time searching for where the right fit for your company, your technology, where you're planning to take your company, and whether there is a fit within the SBIR and STTR programs in the federal government. And then as you dive down, do reach out and communicate. I think it's something Mina had suggested very early on, that we aren't a black box, and we do have people that you can talk to. It's not always easy to get somebody right now when you want them, because people have other duties. That they're many of our technical program managers are managing other grants and activities. But be persistent, and then certainly with regard to the application process, not for technical information, we do have a phone number, email that you can contact anytime, and that is staffed, answer your questions and things like that. So don't feel like you're kind of on an island out there trying to to do this all on your own. And as Jennifer mentioned early on, look for your local resources as well. There are state organizations that are really trying to, push for, economic development in your state and for your state to win SBR awards. And there are organizations out there that will help you and provide, the initial application assistance as well. So take advantage of all that, if you're new to the process. I'll stop there.
Thank you so much, Manny and Mina and Stephanie. And thank you to all of you for joining today. I do hope you'll stick around to learn even more about all of the incredible programs from the different agencies. They're doing the variety of reverse pitches, as well as all the agencies that will be around to answer your questions. This is a great opportunity so you can find your match, get your innovation to the marketplace, and reach out to those local assistance organizations. Those entrepreneur support organizations are out there and they know even more, maybe can help you connect to others that will help advance your technology and get your ideas out there. So thank you, everyone. And we'll see you tomorrow for the Federal Laboratory Consortium and working with the national and federal labs across the country, as well as some information from the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office and the U.S. Copyright Office about protecting your intellectual property. And don't forget to join us on Friday to hear more success stories. Bye.